Hey friends, it is Patrick here. I'm at the B-Team news desk as per usual. Just checking in with you on the St. Catharines market. We've had a bunch of requests from people looking for more specific information on St. Catharines, the market as a whole, and then what's been happening in the different segments of the city. So just like that, here we are. We're going to look at 2020, what happened, what's going on right now, and where we see things hopefully and possibly going in the very near future. Very quickly as well, if you live in Grapeview or you live in Port and you want to skip to that part of the movie and you're watching it on YouTube, if you go down to the comments or the description below this video, you can see all the different areas of St. Catharines with a timestamp. Just click that and bam, you're going to jettison from here to that specific part of the video. Other than that, let's get going. So if you followed any realtors at all on Instagram, Facebook, wherever it is, and seen what everybody's talking about supply, there's not enough supply, there's not enough listings. First of all, it's important to remember this is a conditioning piece to some extent because it's just January 20th. So there's not usually a whole lot of listings happening in the first couple of weeks of January. That being said, what is out of the ordinary is the amount of demand that's going on. So a quick overview on St. Catharines. Right now, there's 112 homes for sale. Of those 112, 11 have offers in place, so that's 89 active. 47 of those are detached. 18 of the 44 are over $1 million. Now, it's important to remember, in 2020 total, there was 40 sales over $1 million for the whole year, and right now there's 18 on the market. So 29 of those 47 detached homes are under $1 million. 21 are under 700,000 and 8 are under 500,000. So right now, across all of the city, there's 8 homes listed under 500,000, and the vast majority of those have offers being looked at in the next 4 or 5 days. So year to date, how does that translate? So yes, there's not so much a lack of supply. There's not enough supply to meet demand, and that's where it's at. So year to date, there's been more or less about 3.5 houses sold per day, half a house. 65, 66 sales so far in the year. 63 of those under $1 million, so 63 under $1 million. The average sale price was $21,000 more than the average asking price. The average sale price for those 63 sales was $545,000. So across the board, the average ask was $524,000. And the big thing, though, is median days in the market. So if you look at average days in the market, there's always some, that skew the numbers. But if you look at the median, so the middle number of the days in the market was 8. And that tells you it's a really, really fast market. Something goes up, they delayed presentation of offers, it's sold, and it's, 4, 5, 6 days in the market. And then of those 63 sales so far this year, 43 of them were detached. The sale price range was between $330,000 and $900,000, so a pretty big spectrum there. Again, there was 2 over $1 million, but just looking under $1 million. And the same deal, the average sale price for those 43 detached was $561,000, on average about $23,000 more than the asking price. So that's the state of events right now. It's a market where the number of new listings isn't great. It's not horrendous, but what the difference maker is that level of demand is not behaving like we would normally expect to see in the middle of January. So that's what's going on right now in St. Catharines. So the first area of St. Catharines we're going to look at is north of Lakeshore Road. So that's that corridor between Lakeshore and the lake. Always a popular area of the city. Obviously, the proximity to the lakefront trail and parks and that whole near the lake lifestyle that people like. So 2020, the number of sales for north of Lakeshore was the 4th highest in the last decade, 104 sales, but it was the lowest number of new listings in the last decade. There was 119 new listings north of Lakeshore in 2020, the lowest in the last 10 years. Right now, there's 3 active listings and quite a range from $1.7 million to an $800,000 townhome, and then another home in between the $850,000-900,000 range. So gone are the back split for $489,000 north of Lakeshore Road. It's a completely new landscape down that neck of the woods, and it's largely fed by the finite amount of supply of homes in that pocket. So the north end of the city, for the purposes of this video, we're going to look at Carlton to Lakeshore Road, detached homes in that sort of area from the canal over to the Martindale Pond. So in that area, there's a lot of homes down there. It's always a popular area, mostly detached, pretty homogeneous as far as that goes. But again, always popular, but 2020 was a very big year, similar to north of Lakeshore, the 4th highest number of sales in the last decade and the lowest number of new listings in the last decade. So as a result, what does that do? It created a pretty significant price bump, up 18% over 2019. So an example of how strong 2020 was. In 2018, there was 582 new listings up against 390 sold. In 2020, there was 423 new listings and 387 sold. So about 160 less listings, but the same number of sales. So that really drove those prices up. The previous record for average sale price increase in that area was 2016 when it went up by over 23%. But again, here in 2020, it was up 18% over 2019. Over the last 5 years, the average sale price is up about $200,000 in that area of the city. Right now, as of right now, there's 5 active listings in this area of the city. 4 of them are doing offer presentations in the next 4 or 5 days. So again, as things go up, it's kind of like toilet paper back in April and May. As it goes on the shelf, it was taken off. Same thing for detached homes in this area of St. Catharines. Port Dalhousie. So describing the Port Dalhousie real estate market, it's kind of like using the term ice cream. There's a ton of different flavors, and with that, there's a lot of different flavors to the Port Dalhousie real estate landscape. All the way from, you have Old Port, which is typically on the east side of Corbett, but even in there, you can have older homes, you can have 1960s homes, you can have brand new homes, you can have cottages, multi-million-dollar estates. So it's sort of all over the map on that side. The other side of Corbett, the Cole Farm area, much more consistent, where you have very similar homes on similar size lots for the most part, a bunch of cul-de-sacs, very quiet, family-friendly, all that kind of good stuff. On the other side of Main Street, you have Portmaster and that pocket where the lots tend to get a little bit larger. On occasion, the homes are a little bit larger. You have Martindale Pond over there too. So lots that draws in buyers of all types into those areas. And then, of course, you can't talk about Port now without talking about the condo market. Take a drive through down by the water, down by the beach, and you're going to see there's a building up. There's another one well on its way to construction. There's another one that is on the books, and then there's another one that's still dirt that will be at some point a condo building as well. So the landscape, over the next 10 years in Port Dalhousie is going to be completely impacted and changed, and it's going to have a different flavor. I can tell you as locals, we're all very excited to see whatever happens, whatever needs to happen. The piers are under construction. The beach has been underwater a couple of times in the last 5 years. So really, I think a time of flux in Port Dalhousie, but there's lots of great stuff on the books, and there's such a passion for that area of the city that I don't think there's anywhere to go but up. So it's just a matter of watching the progress and seeing what's going on. And one day we'd like to imagine that it's all done and everybody can go and enjoy it. So right now, the Port market, 0 sales so far in 2021. Here, we're 20 days into the year. The last decade was sort of ho-hum in the number of sales. The number of new listings was the lowest in the last decade. So again, just sort of a quiet market for Port Dalhousie so far back in 2020. Right now, there's 6 homes on the market. 4 of them are over $1 million, with 2 of them in the high $800,000-900,000 range, $700,000-900,000 range. So again, it's slim pickings in Port Dalhousie right now, similar to other areas of the city, but you can see it's such a multifaceted area. It's hard to put, one overarching report together for it. Okay, so that is Ports. Okay, Grapeview is next. So Grapeview is down the west side of St. Catharines. So it's bordered, you have the 406 highway on one side, which brings you down to Thorold and Welland, down to the south of Niagara. And then on the east side is the 12 Mile Creek. And then on the north side is Port Dalhousie, and the south side is a ton of shopping. Pretty much every store you could ever want. There's food and commercial and retail and all that good stuff. So Grapeview, a lot of homes built in the 80s and 90s, a lot of 2 stories. If you want a 2-story home in St. Catharines, you don't have a lot of places to go in the heart of the city, the north end. There's mostly multi-levels and split levels and bungalows and raised bungalows and that. There's not a lot of 2 stories over there. So, Cole Farm and Port, as I already talked about, and Grapeview and Vansickle, these are areas that have a lot of 2 stories. So it's very popular with families. There's excellent schools in Grapeview, and the market's done really well after what was a pretty, ho-hum, solid like C+ in 2018 and 19, as far as the overall market went. Example, there was 93 new listings in 2018. and 43 sales. So 93 new listings, 43 sales. In 2020, there was 76 new listings and 56 sales. So the market certainly tightened up in as opposed to 2018 and 19. And then the average sale price up into the $625, $630 range, about $130,000 more than the city average. And again, a recovery after what was a pretty not great couple of years, or kind of weak, atypical average sale price growth in 18-19. So again, a nice bounce back. Over the last 5 years, the average sale price in Grapeview is up about $200,000 over the again from 2016 to 2020. So that's at the top end of the improvement over 5 years range in the city as far as the different areas go. So Grapeview is doing well. It like most areas, it needs inventory. Right now, there's a listing under $1 million. There's one at $1 million, and then there's one at $2 million. So not a lot of options in Grapeview at the moment. Of course, we expect that to change as we get into February and March. Okay, that's Grapeview. All right, now we're over to Vansickle. So Vansickle is another area sort of like Grapeview's cousin. Lots of two-story homes, also split levels in that, but lots of two-story homes, some townhomes. And again, it's down the southwest corner of St. Catharines. So you have 4th Avenue shopping above you. Again, all the greenbelt and all the wine country casual stuff going on to the west. Short Hills Provincial Park is about 5 minutes drive away. It's a great area, very popular. Again, great schools and lots of 2 stories, lots of cul-de-sacs, lots of very family-friendly neighborhood area of the city. So similar to Grapeview, but more so, Vansickle did not have a great 2018 and 2019. In fact, the average sale price out there was down in 2019. It was down a couple percent, which you may not have realized. How did 2022? 2020 do? It had a massive comeback. Average sale price increase up 20.2% over 2019. The average sale price coming up on $650,000 for 2020 in Vansickle. The previous record was 2017, which was up 25%. So a big comeback in 2020 as compared to 2019. The average sale price in the last 5 years in Vansickle is up about $220,000. So a really strong run, regardless of what happened in 2019. And what fed that increase? What fed it was in 2020 had the 4th highest number of sales in the last decade, up against the 2nd lowest number of new listings. So it placed 4th in the demand race, and second last in the last decade as far as the supply. So whenever you have big demand against reduced supply, you have pricing doing what it did, which was go up 20%. So right now in Vansickle, very much similar to the rest of the city. There's just not a whole lot out there for sale, but we'll see that will change. There's always a perennial sort of feed of inventory from Vansickle over time, so that will come. Okay. Glenridge. Glenridge is a difficult, not a difficult one. It has to be unpacked though, because there's a lot of different components to Glenridge that do not relate to each other at all. For this interest of this, we're looking below Brock University. So from the escarpment all the way up to the railroad tracks that meet at Old Glenridge. So between the tracks and the escarpment, and then 12 Mile Creek over to 406. So there's lots of different pockets, right? So you have the epicenter of student housing, the Glenridge, Glendale, Jacobson, that sort of area. But then in there, you've got beautiful cul-de-sacs of homes. You've got beautiful homes throughout. So there's sort of a mix. And then as you get over to the southwest corner, that Lockhart, Riverview area over there, you can get homes that are up into the 700, 800, 900, million, million two, million eight. So there's a huge range of pricing in there, and at the end of the day, a huge range in occupancy. So for example, 2020 there was 100 sales. Sort of fuzz there. 2020 there was 100 sales for detached homes. 54 of those homes were tenant occupied or vacant. So there, with COVID and student housing and lack of students. Whether that's going to carry through to 2021 of people divesting themselves of their rental properties remains to be seen. But that didn't really show up in the average sale price. It's not as if there was a glut of inventory that brought prices down. So the demand still held, which was really interesting to see. So far in 2021, there's been 6 sales. There was one over $1 million. So the other 5 sales sold for an average of $570,000. Which is about $80,000, $75,000 more than the city average at $570,000. So it's interesting to see. As well, 2020 had the 3rd highest number of sales in the last decade against the 3rd lowest number of new listings in the last decade. So you had demand up here placing 3rd, and then you had supply third last, coming in at the end. Again, like me in track and field in grade 7. So in spite of the fact that we had all these vacant and tenant occupied properties, it was still chugging away. The average sale price for all 100 properties was $595,000. For those vacant or tenant properties only, it was $543. So about a $50,000 difference between the entire market and then that tenanted or vacant property. And again, there was some big sales over $1 million. I took those out of the data so they didn't skew things. But anyway, so there's, again, when you're looking at the Glenridge neighborhoods, you know, is your house here? Is it here, or the house you want to buy? There's a lot to weigh against the surrounding area and exactly where the pocket is in terms of getting to a proper value on where things are at. Okay, so that's Glenridge. Old Glenridge. It's one of those areas of the city. Who doesn't love Old Glenridge? I remember when I was a kid, cue the music. When I was a kid, my grandmother, who was born in the 1916 range, 1918, something like that. One of my siblings will correct me. Used to tell me when she was a kid watching the homes in Old Glenridge get built, and it was an ooh and ah sort of neighborhood in St. Catharines at the time. And so it really is a unique one of a few areas for larger, more stately character homes in the city. And so as a result, and that also it's in a fixed area. You know, you have the railroad tracks on the south, St. Catharines Golf Club up the right side, 12 Mile Creek up the left, and then downtown up above. So it's fixed in. So you have a finite number of homes, and it always has a strong level of interest. So 2020 was a strong year. Third highest in number of new listings, so the supply did well, and second highest in the number of sales. So overall, strong year. The average sale price up $100,000 from 2019 to 2020. The average sale price for 2020 was $652,000 across the board. Keep in mind that's more than double what it was 5 years ago. Actually, 6 years ago, 2015, it was $312,000. So a pretty intense price appreciation in Old Glenridge. And again, considering the average sale price in Niagara or in St. Catharines was $496, you're up, what's that, $158,000 over the city average for 2020. So a strong year. Like everywhere else, there's only one listing for sale, I believe, in Old Glenridge right now. So of course that is going to improve as we get into February and March. But right now it's pretty quiet out there. Okay, so that's Old Glenridge. Similar to Old Glenridge, the Yates area and the Woodruff area are very popular for people looking for character homes. Yates is unique in that it's right adjacent to downtown. You literally walk across Ontario Street and you're downtown. You can go to a game, a concert, dinner, the pub, whatever. Well, eventually you'll be able to, not right now. But yeah, so very popular, lots of pride. People absolutely love, huge sense of community in those two areas. Again, similar to Old Glenridge. But they're very different, right? So if you're in the market for a character home, you really have to drive through all three to get a feeling for the vibe and the overall atmosphere and everything else. Not a lot of sales volume in those areas, so it's hard to put a lot of weight into the data. That being said, you can see in this graph here the volatility in supply over the last 3, 4, 5 years. Meanwhile, the demand has been fairly consistent. So you can see there 2020, about 10 sales. Up against tighter number of new listings versus 2019. You can see it was a much more wide open market. I believe it was the second lowest number of new listings in the last decade was in 2020. So that up against fairly consistent demand only led to strong pricing in there. So far here in 2021, no sales, but again, that's not out of the ordinary. Roughly a sale a month last year. So once we get going into February, March, I expect we'll see that inventory start to kick in as people want to move, and then the ship will right itself, I expect, as we get into the spring market. Okay, so that is Yates and Woodruff. The downtown core. So here we're looking at Welland up to Carlton, from Niagara Street over to Ontario. Character homes, 1920s, 30s, 40s, lots of 2 stories, always popular. There's always a lot of demand, a lot of turnover, a lot of volume in that area. So it's great because you can get really good data on what's going on in that end of the market. So far in 2021, the average sale price, there's been 4 listings sold in that area. The average sale price so far is at $449,000, so $450 so far for the year. Just under $400 for an average sale price for 2020. Interesting to note, third highest number of sales in 2020 going back a decade, and the second lowest number of new listings. So many other areas had the same characteristics. Supply was down here and the number of sales were up here. So as a result, you see the average sale price do what it did. The average sale price nearly doubled in 5 years at nearly $400,000. It's almost doubled in the span of 5 years. So currently, what's going on in that area? Guess how many homes are for sale? There's none as of right now. I could be proven wrong by somebody clicking upload right now. But again, with 4 sales already this year, up to 450, so $50,000 higher than the 2020 average, and nothing for sale. That level of demand hasn't waned. So as a result, we're seeing what we're seeing, which is the upward pressure on pricing for the downtown core. Okay, so that's downtown. So when we started this video, we started in the north end of St. Catharines, north of Carlton, then Port Dalhousie down the west side, up to downtown. Now we're going to move east. So the east side of the city, Secord Woods, Meriton, over in that area. You have the canal going down the east side, which obviously runs from Lake Erie all the way to Lake Ontario. And Secord Woods really is this pocket from Meriton up to the skyway, really up to the highway. And if you look, you'll see this pocket, this sort of rectangle of homes up the east side. There is a range. You have semi-detached, you have townhomes. There's rental buildings. And then there's a lot of detached homes as well. So it's fairly consistent, but overall, you can pull something out of the data. So far this year, there's been one sale. In 2020, had the 4th lowest number of sales, and then the lowest number of new listings. So overall, a pretty quiet 2020 in Secord Woods. Again, 4th lowest number of sales, and then the lowest number of new listings. But that being said, case in point, as far as the overall volume goes, in 2018 there was 120 new listings, 77 sales. 2019 there was 112 new listings, 76 sales. And then, so again, fairly consistent, right? Supply here, sales here. And then 2020, there was 88 new listings and 74 sales. So the number of sales every year were within 3 of each other. Meanwhile, there was about a 35 drop off in the number of new listings from 2019 to 2020. So what did that do? That actually drove the average sale price to nearly $450,000 for detached houses in Secord Woods for 2020. That's almost double the number that was in 2015. So overall, over the last 5 years, the average sale price in Secord Woods has gone up about $50,000 a year, almost like perfectly symmetrically every year. So for 5 years, you've got this build up, $50,000 per. So again, consistent, strong growth, and fairly consistent on the sales side. It's just a matter of the new listing inventory and where that's going to go. Much like the rest of the city, we expect we're going to see that pick up as we get into February and March. But that's where Secord Woods is at so far here in 2021. So sales over $1 million in St. Catharines. So we've talked about it before. The lion's share of homes over $1 million or sales over $1 million historically was always in Niagara on the Lake. That's where the largest number were. And now that's sort of spread out. Niagara on the Lake is still the number one performer in over $1 million. But now there's sort of diversification where we're seeing Grimsby, St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, Font Hill, Fort Erie, all with about 40 to 50 sales over $1 million for 2020. So it's an interesting market that we've seen growing that really was almost non-existent 6, 7, 8 years ago. So 2020 had 40 sales over $1 million, but you'll see in this graph, the number of sales is sort of like the younger sibling trying to keep up with the older sibling, which is the supply. So you can see there was 108 new listings over $1 million in St. Catharines in 2020 up against 40 sales. So even though there was 40 sales, there was 68 that didn't sell, right? So or were relisted, whatever the case may be. So while there is that demand, the appetite from the demand side isn't quite keeping up with the supply, but still serious growth in that end of the market. The average sale price of those 40 sales was $1.54 million, but remember there was some pretty heavy 7-figure sales in 2020 that pushed that up there. I think the median is probably in the 1.2.5 range, something like that. But so that's the situation so far for $1 million and over. And right now here in 2021 in Niagara, the $1 million plus market is it's keeping pace with what happened in 2020. And I think we're at about a sale per day over $1 million so far in 2021. So interesting times on the high end of the market, but the demand is clearly here and isn't going anywhere at this point. So Condo Apartments in St. Catharines, they're hard to put a an overview on them all as a whole, because there is different variations between really there's three types of condo apartment style in St. Catharines. You have the condo conversions, like over by Fairview Mall, 359 Geneva, 196 Scott, those sort of places. They were rental properties when they were built back in the 60s or 70s, and then at some point in the 80s or 90s they were converted into condo. Those tend to get a different price because they have less amenities. They typically don't have underground parking. A few of the Towering Heights buildings do, but in general they don't have underground parking or big indoor pools and guest suites and workout rooms and in-suite laundry and all this other stuff, because they were originally built for a different purpose. So those tend to get one price in general. And then there was 5 buildings built in 1988, 1990, 162 Martindale, Grenadier Place, 81 Scott Street over by Toys R Us, 701 Geneva down at the north end of Geneva Street, 7 Gale, and 3 Towering Heights. So those were all built within a couple of years of each other, 3 years of each other. And those tend to get similar market value. Not exactly. 701 Geneva's on the water, but they're sort of cousins to each other. At least that's the way I feel about them anyway. And then you have a few of the newer low-rise 3, 4, 5-story, like 16 Wood and 379 Scott Street. And they're in their pocket as well. And now there's also there's a new one on Lakeport, and there's a new one over on 4th Ave. So those are like this other subcategory, or other category of condo apartments. But if you look at the whole selection of condo apartments in St. Catharines in general, the market's been very strong. The last 5 years, the average sale price across the board is up about 65%. So really good growth there. And but again, it's really hard if somebody says, what's a 2-bedroom condo apartment going for these days? Well, you could be talking about 2-something, 3-something, 4-something, 5-something. It really depends on the building that you're looking at and what you're looking at, really. So I don't know if that helped or not, but that's where the condo apartment, if you're interested in that end of the market, whether you're looking to sell something or buy something, reach out, because we can get into the nitty gritty. Actually, I'll link below this YouTube video an article we did that looks at condos at the condo market in St. Catharines and pulls it apart and gives some context to what's going on out there too. I just thought of that. Anyway, yeah, so that's condo apartments. So townhomes. Again, very much similar to condo apartments. There's a lot of variance to the townhome market in St. Catharines. You have condo townhomes, you have freehold townhomes, you've got 2-story, you've got newer bungalow, bungaloft. So it's sort of all over the map as far as that goes. So again, if somebody says to me, what's a townhome going for these days? Well, it can be $800,000, it could be $350,000. It's sort of all over the map. That being said, so far this year, there's been 9 sales. Average sale price about $635,000. But again, you have a mix of 2-story from the 1970s up against a 2-year-old bungalow. So you're gonna get a range there, right? But still, really strong sales growth. You'll see here in the bungalow segment, 8-10 years ago, we were begging builders to build more bungalow townhomes, and we're not awash with land in St. Catharines, right? But you can see how that inventory really, really improved over the last 5 years. And the demand is still there because there's a lot of people that want to get out of those multi-level homes and get into a 1-floor living. But, a lot of great builders are doing that. And you're seeing new bungalow townhome or bungalow townhome sites popping up. And you can see the average sale price. There's been 2 sales here in 2021, just over $700,000, $725,000. But again, huge growth of supply. For example, in 2016, there was 58 new listings. In 2020, there was 159 new listings of bungalow or bungalow townhomes. So that's a 3-fold increase, right? Average sale price just under $600,000 for bungalow and bungalow townhomes in 2020. So big growth both on the inventory side, the demand side, and the average sale price, which is great because there's a demand for it out there and it's getting fed on a year in and year on basis because the supply side is there. So that's townhomes largely. Oh yeah, one more thing. Sorry. The other category to look at is the 1970s 2-story. So if you look at the north end of St. Catharines, down north of the QEW, there's quite a few. 151 Linwell and 50 Lakeshore, 151 Parnell. And a lot of these are rental conversions where they were originally built as rental townhomes that were converted to condo. But now we're seeing this strong growth because the neighboring homes are getting so much money that it's pushing people into the townhome market. And so now we're seeing those into the 360, 375, 380 range in those particular pockets or those particular developments. So that's something we're definitely watching is those two-story 1970s, 1980s townhome sites in the north end of St. Catharines. They're going to have a huge couple of years, we expect. Okay, guys, that is a wrap. Thank you so much. That was long. It was a pretty deep dive into the St. Catharines market. First, I know I didn't get all the different areas of St. Catharines, but that was a more or less a broad overview of what's going on. I know I didn't hit Port Weller or Western Hill or Meriton, but that gives you an idea in general of what's going on. The same trends do carry almost every corner of the city. If you have questions on your area, reach out anytime. Hopefully this helped. I know it's a lot to unpack and it's a lot to try to put into one video without going into a half an hour. So hopefully you found this helpful. You know where to reach us if you have any questions on your area or a particular part of the market, whether it's St. Catharines or anywhere in Niagara. Reach out. We're here. We'd love to chat. Otherwise, again, truly appreciate your time. Thanks so much. We hope you're doing okay. And we look forward to hearing from you whenever you'd like. Okay. Thank you, guys. We'll see you. Bye.